I stood at the rear of the auditorium, lingering just beyond the reach of the spotlight. The air was thick with the scent of cheap perfume and fierce ambition. Rows of parents sat proudly, phones raised, flashes bursting like fireworks, lights gleaming on polished faces. Then they said her name. Valedictorian. Top science student. Student leader of the year. My daughter shone like the star she was. She walked onto that stage as if the world belonged to her, because in that moment, it did. And for just a second, everything slipped away. I forgot what she'd turned into. Forgot how much of her I'd shaped. Forgot the heavy ache buried in my chest. Then she turned toward the microphone, smiling just a little too brightly. "I've got a special award to give tonight," she said. "This one's a surprise. For someone who's always had an impact." Laughter bubbled from the audience. Light at first, then sharper, the kind that sinks under your skin and itches. She held it up. A gold-colored plastic trophy, shiny and heartless. World's most embarrassing dad. The room exploded with laughter and applause. She strutted over and handed it to me like she was delivering a punchline. Her chin lifted high. My ex-wife sat in the front row. She was the first to clap. Her new husband followed, and the two of them slapped hands like they'd just scored a game-winning basket. I said nothing, didn't glance at the trophy, just turned and walked out before she could see the look in my eyes. The next morning, she called again and again. I ignored every ring. She never thought I'd vanish. And she sure as hell didn't see what was coming. Once upon a time, I braided her hair every single morning before school. Her shampoo smelled like strawberries, and she'd giggle and call me Daddy Genius whenever I fixed her science projects. I was at every recital, rain or shine. I baked every birthday cake myself, from scratch. But after the divorce, things began to shift. Not dramatically, just little things at first. A weekend missed. A colder tone on the phone. Then slowly, the shift turned into a slide, and everything started slipping away. My ex had money. Her new man had influence. All I had was truth. And that's what they couldn't stand. They chipped away at me with smiles and sly remarks. "He means well. Don't make a big deal, honey. Your dad's just a little awkward." They didn't just pull her away from me, they rewired her. I began to notice the way she stiffened when I hugged her in public. How she'd roll her eyes if I wore sneakers that weren't trendy. One afternoon, I showed up at her soccer match and she told me flat out not to come again. Said it was embarrassing. Little by little, I was becoming smaller in her world. Not by accident, by design. And I let it happen. Until that damned trophy cracked something wide open. 3 days after that night, I filed a petition. Not for custody. That battle was long lost. No, I was after something more fragile. The truth. I started with records, old texts, emails, financial paperwork, transcripts from court. Then I brought in a professional. Quiet. Sharp. A digital bloodhound. And what we uncovered. My ex had drained the college fund I'd been building since the day our daughter was born. Wiped clean. Used it as collateral on a private loan for her new husband's collapsing business. And the worst part? My daughter had no clue. They'd been spoon-feeding her reassurances. Telling her the money was in safe investments, growing smartly, ready for her future. A future already spent behind her back. They thought they had time. They thought the lie would last. So, I helped it shatter. It started with a plain envelope, left quietly on her desk the night before her final exam. No name. No return address. Just truth. Inside. Bank records. Loan contracts. A photo of me holding that plastic trophy, caught mid-laugh. And scrawled beneath in my handwriting. Smile big, kiddo. They've already spent your future. Soon after, the scholarship committee received a discreet envelope. Inside were copies of altered financial documents, false income statements submitted by my ex-wife to inflate our daughter's need for aid. It wasn't just deceit. It was federal-level fraud. Within a single day, the scholarship was revoked. And I made sure the damage didn't come in a crash, but in harmony. One carefully timed note after another, until the whole structure unraveled. The fallout arrived swiftly. My daughter showed up at my door, eyes red, tears streaming. She wore a hoodie that hung off her shoulders, hair tangled, face stripped of performance. No audience. No stage. Just her. "You did this," she said. "I didn't confirm. I didn't deny." She sobbed, shouted, threw accusations like daggers. And when I finally spoke, it was calm, precise, like a surgeon explaining where the rot had spread. "You humiliated me in front of a crowd," I said. "But this isn't about embarrassment. This is about honesty. And the truth you lived in was dressed up in betrayal and handed to you with a bow." She tried to reply, but I kept going. "They manipulated you, turned you into their mouthpiece, and you gave them control willingly." Then I placed the evidence in front of her. Documents with her forged signature. Accounts opened in her name. Debts she hadn't agreed to. Chains she didn't even know she wore. She didn't say anything after that. Her voice went still. Her hands trembled. 2 weeks later, the consequences landed. My ex-wife was facing legal heat, charges of financial fraud, identity theft, tax evasion. Her husband didn't wait around. He fled to Belize and left her to face the consequences alone. My daughter stayed with me after that, not because I pleaded or asked, but because, for the first time, she saw what had been hidden behind the shine and the stories. The glitter was gone. Only ashes remained. It wasn't some magical reunion. I didn't expect apologies. I wasn't waiting for hugs. But one evening, weeks later, she knocked quietly on my door. In her hands was a new trophy, plain, unpolished metal. No engraving. No plastic. "Just wait. I made this in shop class," she said. I looked at her. She wasn't crying. No sarcasm. No performance. "I know it doesn't make up for everything," she added. "But I'm not proud of what I did. And I think you deserve something that's real." I accepted it. Set it down. Not on display, not on a shelf. Just between us. "I didn't do any of this to punish you," I told her. "I did it to remind you where the truth lives. It doesn't beg for claps. It just stands. There's a scar in me now. A hollowed-out place where unconditional love once lived, untouched. But I'm not bitter. I'm awake." She calls me Dad again. Not dude. Not cringe. Just Dad. She asks questions now. Doesn't pretend she knows everything. And in the still moments, when the world is quiet, I sometimes catch her watching me like she's searching for something she once recognized. Maybe she'll find it. Maybe not. But one thing is certain. They thought they could reduce me to a punchline. They laughed. I answered with silence. And that silence buried them.